The way a company brands itself is everything. It will ultimately decide whether a business survives. Sir Richard Branson. You have the power to be the boss of your own life. I'm your host, Monica Allen. I'm a wife, mom, entrepreneur, best-selling author, lifelong learner, and your biz bestie. I have a love and passion for all things small business. Growing my own company from $700 to over 7 figures annually, my goal is to bring you inspiration, business-focused topics and tips, encouragement, and a community that helps you launch, grow, and scale your business, whether you are a dreamer, a side hustler, or a seasoned entrepreneur. You are listening to the Become Your Own Boss podcast. Welcome to Season 7. Welcome to episode 170. I am so excited to be back. I had to take a break though, guys. I really did. I was tired. I was burnt out. And I had to take a break on a few different fronts, truthfully. I took a break for a couple of days and just went off by myself to a really cool inn here in Georgia called Serenbe. It was great. It was 2 days of just me being still, not having work to do, just being able to think and to just be. And then I also had the opportunity to go to the beach with my family. We took a little bit of a break, and we don't normally do this because fall is a very busy time for us in our business, but we all needed a break from just the normalcy of life. We needed a break to do something different, to have some fun. So now I'm back. I'm very thrilled to bring you Season 7, to bring you some great interviews, to bring you some new content to think through when it comes to making your business stronger, making your brand stronger, being and building better relationships with your customers, making sure that you're doing things to leave a legacy for your family, to create generational wealth, and just a variety of things. I cannot wait to dive deeper into this season. And this week, I'm bringing you an interview with my very first guest to be a part of Season 7. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. That interview is coming right up for you. This episode is being brought to you by Zeus's Closet. Zeus's Closet is actually one of my companies. And I recently encountered a customer who said to me, "You all really need to be a part of our pitch competitions that we have monthly," because at every pitch competition, they are told that they should have on something representing their brand, representing their business, representing what they are pitching. And I say all this to say that if you don't have a logo polo shirt or some logo gear for you and your team, talk to me. Because when I tell you, that is truly one of the things that I feel made a big difference when it came to us growing our company. We were pushing forward. We were doing all the things when it came to sending out marketing emails and paying for ads on Google and Facebook and Instagram. We were doing all those things. But when we actually embraced wearing our own logo every single day, and not that you have to wear it every day, but our team actually embraced wearing our logoed apparel every single day, people would stop and ask us questions. What is Zeus's Closet? What do you all do? I strongly recommend that if you are a solopreneur, you should have at least one shirt in your closet with your logo on it. So when you go out to meetings or networking groups or whatever the case may be, that you actually can wear that shirt. If you have a team, your team members should at least have one item that is logoed to represent the brand and to represent the business. Visit Zeus'sCloset.com to find out more information. You can view our catalog. You can order a solopreneur package. You can order items for your entire team. And you can even set up your own swag store with us if you want your team members to be able to go on and buy their own items. So again, visit Zeus'sCloset.com, and I will put that link in the show notes as well. I am absolutely thrilled to bring you my interview with my guest today. She, like myself, started her entrepreneurial journey at a very young age. At the age of 12, she founded her very first business, a babysitter's club. Since then, she has worked in a variety of careers, running a brick and mortar retail store, managing a bookkeeping and tax service, founding a marketing agency, as well as a few other businesses. Her most recent venture, Order Carter, formerly Carhops Delivery. My guest today is Tameshia Weaver, and I cannot wait for you to hear from her. Tameshia and I met through Clubhouse, which I think is dying a slow death because I don't really go on there very much anymore. But Clubhouse was amazing because I met some really amazing people through that social media portal, and Tameshia was one of them. She is going to share with us today her journey of starting Carhops and some of the things she has been going through recently when it comes to their brand. So take a listen to my chat with Tameshia. Tameshia, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Monica, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. I've been a listener for such a long time. To finally have the chance to talk is great.
Yes, and I appreciate you for being a listener, and I appreciate you for being a guest on the podcast because I know your business started in 2019 and has grown by leaps and bounds. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. Okay. And just first, let's start off by telling me a little bit about, I know there's UberEats and there's Doordash and there's all those things, but what makes, and we'll talk about the name, but for now, yes. Carhops.
Okay.
What makes your business different and why did you guys start it?
Right. What makes Carhops different? And like you said, we're going to go into the name change because that's a big announcement as well. We put people first. Okay. I myself, I come up from the hotel and the hospitality industry. I did a lot of serving and waiting, throughout college and my earlier, the earlier parts of my life. For me, it's always been about serving people, right? And, with that being said, we serve three groups of people in our business. We serve our restaurant partners, we serve our team, and then we also serve the customers. And we separate them because each one has to be served differently, and each one requires a different level of service from, as a company. That's what it is. It really is. We put people first. A lot of people in our industry, they're focused on the numbers. They're focused on the speed and all this just, different dynamics. But if we just focus on the people, that's where the shift happens. Right. And then, like you said, we started in 2019. We are a food and retail delivery service. We started out just as a food delivery service in Thomaston, Georgia, which is middle Georgia. It's probably about an hour and 15 minutes south of the Atlanta airport. It's where I'm from. It's where my partner is from. And when we initially started, we were serving a need. All of the larger cities, have DoorDash, Grubhub, UberEats, Postmates, all those different companies. And I was just thinking, I'm like, well, why can't we still provide that same type of service to the smaller communities where there are a lot of people who don't have cars, or it's the elderly, heavily elderly population, just regular people who just want the convenience of delivery. You know what I'm saying? When the larger companies are spreading, they're not necessarily thinking smaller rural communities. That's what we found our sweet spot.
Yeah, I love that. And, definitely you see the bigger players in the bigger cities. I think I met you on Clubhouse.
Yes.
And when I found out about your business, I thought, wow, that is such a great niche market because I grew up in a small town. Very small.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Madison, Georgia.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. So it has grown since I've left. It's
right.
a well-known city because of Lake Oconee and people go down there and all that. But when I was growing up, there was really nothing there.
Right.
But to be able to have a service like that in a city that's smaller or a small town, like as someone who has a mom who's getting older, to be able to say, hey, just call this company and they'll bring you bring you some stuff from the grocery store. Because I love the fact that you all do that as well. You're not just going to restaurants.
Right.
You all shop. You all will go shopping for people too.
We do. And we actually have a customer. She lives in Cummings, Georgia. And when she found out about our service, she pretty much placed the order for her mom. Her mom is elderly. Her mom lives in Thomaston, been living there for years, have friends and family that are there as well. But she relies on our service, almost week over week to go to get the shopping items. And then sometimes when her mom wants a little extra little treat, she'll say, oh, well, can you go to Chick-fil-A today? You're right. People that live in other places, because, most of us that grew up in small towns, we think we need to go out and, leave and go to other places. But right. You still want to be able to provide provide services for your parents and your grandmothers and grandfathers and, things like that. You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the service definitely seems very different from the other players in the space. What have you found to be, I know you mentioned people, but within working with people and focusing on those kind of 3 niche areas when it comes to people, but what have you found to be the difference that make you all successful? Because you're growing. I know mm-hmm. that because mm-hmm. I know you.
Right.
Yeah.
With us, it is growing, but not at a super fast pace. When we initially started off, we wanted to just once we kind of found our rhythm and was able to, get the people ordering in Thomaston, we were like, okay, and then on top of that too, it was pre-pandemic. So it was maybe 6 months before everything shut down. When we were faced with a shutdown, we found an opportunity to expand even faster, right? But with that, all types of trials and errors and issues when you try to expand too fast. Bringing it back, again, really just serving from it's top down. Because we're leader servers, we require our team to be that way, and we work with our restaurant partners that way. Our customers see it, everybody feels it, right? It's from the smallest things of, instead of outsourcing our dispatch service to overseas, we keep those things in-house or in the US. With us, we found that, yes, it would be more cost effective for us to outsource to the Philippines or, to different places and pay them to do it. But being in the South, being from a small town, serving our community, one, we had to know our community, and listening to other people in our industry who do outsource, but they're in smaller communities. They always say this one thing. It's I think it kind of loses connection between the customer and our service when there's somebody that doesn't sound like them that answers the phone. It's the weirdest thing, but it was one of the factors that played into the part of why we couldn't outsource that. We need people to call us and interact with us and get that feel that, okay, this is really a local service. And this is, they're here, so it's not like we're some big mega name, which Carhops, the brand itself, has become bigger than life. So people always they forget that we're local for some reason. It's oh, I didn't know that there was a Carhops here. Yes, there's a Carhops, So yeah, so just like I said, really taking the time and thinking about what everybody needs, even when it comes to our teams, because our dispatchers are local, our team, there's no language barriers, or there's no, most of the people either live in the areas that we serve. If everything is familiar, so keeping it more familiar. And I understand as we grow, it's going to be harder to do that, but we have some things in mind and in place that will allow us to still grow, but still kind of keep that locally owned feel, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's so unique though. Just, you made such a great point in knowing your community that you're working in, right? Knowing who you're serving and knowing mm-hmm. that in those small town areas, it would not go well for their dispatch to be, sent somewhere else and they can't understand, or especially if they're already older and, just that barrier. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful thing to note and to mm-hmm. make a point of knowing about your customer.
And you have to be honest with yourself. It is just the facts. I wish we were and now, when we expand and we call it on demand, because we have 2 separate sides of the business, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But right now I'm focusing on the on demand portion, which that's the portion of the business that competes with the Doordash, the Grubhub, the UberEats. That's when you place your order on our app. call us or order on our website, and then we have somebody out there to deliver within 45 minutes or less. That's why we call it on demand, right? When we had to be honest and we had to think about that. Now, when we launched the on demand side in metro areas, well, there's all kind of communities that are kind of mixed into, to one. There's all type of ethnicities and cultures and stuff like that are mixed. It's a little easier to get away with it here. But again, I'm telling you, like, we learned from people who went before us that it may be cheaper, but in the long run, it's not going to be appreciated.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Even the restaurant owners, we launched in Thomaston about a year before DoorDash came. I don't know the DoorDash guides or what. I'm not sure what happened, but they got wind that, there was another service there. And they're like, I'm sure they, did their research and try to figure out, how much business could potentially be there.
Right.
And I remember talking to a few restaurants and, again, we were on they were on our platform first because we were the only ones there. When DoorDash came in and was soliciting their business, they were like, okay, cool, we'll be on both. After a few weeks, they got themselves off of DoorDash and only wanted to work with us. And that was one of the biggest things. It was like, we just don't like how they do business in the way where they're sending everything, offshore and, interactions.
Yeah. And there's definitely a different feel when you're working with small towns, because I know for me growing up, in a small town, you kind of know everybody, right? And there's a certain comfort to that.
Right.
You can't even go down the street as a kid. You can't do anything wrong because your parents are going to know about it before you even get back
before you get home. Yes.
So it's a different feel when you're working in smaller towns. I think you all have a great niche. I love that. I absolutely do. You had mentioned some of the challenges, that speed of ramping up. What were some of those challenges and how did you deal with those?
Yes, a lot of it was not having enough hands, right? There's so many moving parts to the business that you really need to have somebody for each department. And I got this from, so again, working in the hotel world, so hotel industry, we had a maintenance department, the front desk, housekeeping, food and beverage, all of these departments, and they were department heads. And then you had everybody, all the team members that were under the department heads. It was the general manager. He met with all the department heads, told us what he wanted us to do, what the vision was, what the mission was, all that. And then we disseminated it to our team, right? And it was just the flow of that type of setup works, right? And when I think about our business, there's so many different departments within our business that me and my partner trying to wear all the hats and trying to do all the things, yet still sometimes we had to go jump out and do deliveries. We had to jump on dispatch. I mean, it was just trying to do all the things worked well when we were just in Thomaston. But as we continue to expand and to continue to grow, it was just, at some points we lost sleep, we lost motivation. We just kind of lost it, right? And we had to understand we had to bring in some more help to be able to operate efficiently. And then the other part to that is, although I knew what SOPs were, and although I knew what the importance of documenting and putting down your processes and procedures, again, I'm learning this from the hotel industry, right? Everything that was done had a SOP.
Right.
I just didn't know how much I needed it in my business. I don't know. It's kind of like one of those things, like, what a business plan is for. But until you have to maybe go out and pitch or do something that really requires you to have this business plan, you kind of like let it go by the wayside. It's like, it's not a right now thing. It's I'll get to it when I get to it thing. Not having enough people, and then also not having our processes and procedures in place to where, if me or my partner Lancer had to step away from the business for a while, nobody was able to come in and like pick up from where we left off. Everything was in our brains and our minds, and we were the only ones who know how to do everything. So I think those are the two biggest issues that we ran into growing and expanding.
Yeah. With you talking about that, it brought up so many thoughts for me. One, a lot of times as small businesses, we don't think we really need those standards of operating procedures, right? The SOPs. We think, oh, well, it's just me. I don't need to write down what I do because I know what I do. I know what I'm doing every day, right?
Right.
But we really should start documenting that in the very beginning, Because
but yeah, before it's an idea, go ahead and start documenting it. And then two things that happen. Once you start to grow, you're always going to go back and revise them. That's why it's very important to have the dates put on there so you know exactly when they've been revised. And then you also know, okay, well, if this is one that I haven't touched since I opened, I probably need to go back and revise it.
right.
But then two, as you start bringing in other people to work in your business, they are able to look at it. And if it's written down, they can help you fine tune that process, because hopefully you're getting somebody that can add to the business and not just like somebody that you have to just train and they just do everything that you say. Like for me, I needed people who are actually thinkers as well.
Question for you though, with that, you're in this business, it's growing, you want to scale it. How did you juggle being able to afford to bring in people to take some of your hats off your head and Lancer's hats and put them in place? How did you balance the revenue to the expense of payroll?
Well, that's a good question. And it's still a work in progress, right? We haven't necessarily brought on like the bigger players right now that we need. We have our organizational chart written out. We have a vision for what that looks like. But right now, to take off some of the minutia type things, we have drivers that were like saying, okay, we've been with you since right after day one, and we want to, do what we can do to help grow. So, right now I have a few of my drivers that I can rely on to do some of the admin type things, menus, and just some of the behind the scenes kind of in the system stuff that I can rely on them to do when we're slower, when we're in a downtime, or if it's their off day, or, those type things. And then as well as luckily and thank God, Lancer has a 15-year-old now. Christian is really, a big help when it comes to some of the admin things as well. And then outside of that, relying on community. At one point, I didn't necessarily want to ask for help from the people that I knew, right? I was the weirdest thing. I don't know if it was my pride getting in the way or what, but it was definitely a challenge. But I've just learned over the last maybe year to just ask for the people that are experts in their particular fields, that are my friends, that are Lancer's friends, that are just a part of our community, and they will step in. So whether it has something to do with helping with social media or new photography, new content and new things that we needed for the brand, like asking them people. Yeah, definitely paying them. May not be paying them everything that they're worth or what they would be charging other people, but definitely kind of just relying on the community to help at this point in time. Now, again, we do have a plan to bring on our first. I've been interviewing operation managers, and I think the direction that I'm going to go into is not hiring a full-time one, but I found a really cool resource. She's a great lady. I actually found her from going to it was a workshop that was at the Rice Center here in Atlanta. She's a boutique like operations team, and she said that her capacity is like 5 to 7 clients at a time. I think I'm going to go that direction because she'll give us like 20 hours a month. She's somebody who I can not only bounce ideas off, but actually, work through some strategies, get some things in place, and then go from there.
He's a fractional COO, probably.
That's what it is. Yes. I was like, I can't think of it. Yes, that's it. Mm-hmm.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's really good. Mm-hmm. And, I find it too that sometimes those fractional services are really important. Even like with virtual assistants, just having a few hours that they can do something that you don't have to do is great. Fractional CFO, just all of those can be.
And I didn't really know that it existed. I kind of heard about them, but I never seen them in action. Right. And I was at this workshop, and the guy who was leading the workshop, she's his fractional COO, and she was there. And I was asking him a question, and he was like, "Oh no, you need to go speak to her." Like, I was asking him a question about something he said in the workshop, and then I was telling him, the challenge or opportunity that we have to start bringing on people for our leadership team. And he was like, well, before you actually bring somebody on as a full-time person, why don't you go this direction? I was like, oh, well, thank you. That's the power of getting out there and asking questions and just being vulnerable and being open to ask those questions, because somebody has the answer.
Very true. Yeah. I often say you definitely have to get outside of your 4 walls
Yes.
to really
And
go.
after the pandemic, I mean, things are still happening, but, just put on your own oxygen mask, do what you have to do for yourself, but you still have to get out there. I mean, online is great, but it's the magic for me, at least, is getting out there and, like you said, getting outside of your four walls.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so speaking of brand, let's talk about your brand. I know you all started off as Carhops, and right now you're in the process of going through some changes. Can you tell us what you can tell us about that evolution?
Right. The first thing I will say to everyone is, before you even buy your domain name, check all the things and make sure that you are trademark ready, trademarked, and can be trademark approved, right? I've heard about people that have gone through trademark issues. I've heard about, I've never personally gone through it until now. That's what that's what we can start, is that after 3.5 years of running Carhops, we were sent a letter in the mail, or through email, really, about the fact that we were infringing on somebody's trademark. And it was the weirdest space to be in, because although we didn't do our due diligence as far as getting the trademark, we thought we had did all the research we needed to do to make sure that this name was going to be like ours. And, we wasn't infringing on somebody else's property, right? Back when we changed or launched Carhops. So again, fast forward to now, thank God that we come from the marketing and the branding world prior to launching Carhops, and Lancer designs all of our logos, and anything that has to do with branding, that's what his expertise is. And it's a little less expensive for us to kind of go through this transition, but emotionally it really hurt. It cut me. It really did. It's probably one of the things that, if I had to write a book, it'd be several chapters about how emotionally this was painful. I think I'm screaming to the mountaintops, like, look, you want to start a business? Good. Go get a trademark first. Yeah.
Yeah. Just for other people who are listening, what were the things that you did to check it? When you did look up Carhops, did you look at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and you just didn't happen upon that? Or were you just looking at like websites and social, and what did you do? What was the due diligence that you did do?
Yes, I remember looking, of course, like we always look for like the domain first. It's kind of like one of our telltale things. I'm like, okay, if the domain is available, then we should be good, or, going in the right direction. Then, right. All the social media handles were good. We did see them on a Google search, but they were so far north, like in the north part of the country, and we're in the south. So, and at that time, when we first started, I think it was just like overly excited. We got something that we think that could go. And again, it was just me and him. We didn't really have other people that we were seeking their advice and things like that. I cannot remember, honestly, if we checked the USTPO? Yeah,
USPTO.
PTO. I don't remember. But even now, though, when I look at it, because every now and then I still check. The interesting thing is, this other company and us, we both started around the same time. And the guy who started it is a trademark lawyer. I mean, so he has a food delivery service and he's a trademark lawyer. So, of course he knew to do it. And again, it may have been like 2 months difference of when we started. You're right. With that being said, even if I would have checked, me not knowing everything that I know now about trademarks, which still is not much, but I would have thought to myself, probably, he's so far north in the area. I'm south. We're Carhops delivery. He's Carhop with no S, and then it's like me or something like that. It's not, so it was, for me, it was like, it was night and day. But now, I understand why It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. I find the whole trademarking thing fascinating, because it's one of those things, if you don't know to do it, you don't do it, right? It's interesting because right now with Become Your Own Boss, I'm in the process of trademarking that. I had actually gotten my little number and everything. And Hugo Boss has decided to contest my trademark, which makes no sense to me because they do apparel and cologne, and I'm up here just trying to teach people about managing their business and becoming their own boss in business.
Right.
I do have a trademark attorney who is fighting it, but with those types of things, it's a process. Everything is a process, and that's money and all of that type of stuff. I think, Tameshia, though, you make such a valuable point in that just having someone with that knowledge that you can chat with about it is helpful, right? Mm-hmm. My attorney, she actually is the person who filed for the trademark. We got the number, and now we have to fight Hugo Boss, which makes zero sense to me.
Right.
We're not even in the same class,
Mm-mm.
But
because one of the whole things, which now it makes a lot of sense, is would your customer or your client with becoming your own boss get confused with Hugo Boss? And it's like, no. Like,
exactly.
And if they do, they should be in business and they shouldn't be trying to buy clothes. Like,
Exactly. Very interesting though, because when you have big companies like that, they have whole teams. That's all they do is sit and look for anything that they think is infringing. I mean, anything. We've actually gone through a couple of trademark battles in our business in 20 years because we've actually gone up against Plato's Closet. We have Zeus's Closet.
Right.
Plato's Closet. Not the same thing, but they look out for the word closet. So if you're going to go for a word closet, just know Plato's Closet is probably going to come for you, even if you're not doing the exact same thing. We honestly, in that situation, we spent money on attorneys, but we ended up changing our class. Mm-hmm. We went from having it being just apparel to just like decorating, because Plato's Closet is more reused apparel,
right?
Decorating apparel. But either way, we changed the class code what we were in. And then we actually had to send someone a cease and desist some years ago for the word Zeus. Because we were using that, and we were actually both retail stores. It's interesting. You have to do your due diligence to protect your brand.
Right.
As other companies are doing theirs. But definitely, as Tameshia said, you got to look it up and definitely work hard to make sure you're not in the same class code and name's not the same. And so now have you all decided on the new name and what you're branding as going forward?
Okay, I'm going to pause here. Tune in next week to hear Tameshia's answer to my question. And one of the reasons I want to take a pause is because she and I go on to talk for about 30 more minutes, diving deep into their strategy for scaling their business into other cities, as well as she answers the question, what's the one thing she would change if she could go back to 2019, outside of researching their trademark more thoroughly. And we talk about so much more, so don't miss that next week. Also, I'm challenging myself to keep these podcast episodes to 30 minutes or less, which is very difficult to me because I love to talk and I truly enjoy when I have someone on the show who we can really dive deep into conversation. So wish me luck. There has already been a number of takeaways from this episode, but I want to quickly circle back to the quote at the top of the show. The way a company brands itself is everything, and it will ultimately decide whether a business survives. A lot of times we think of brands, we think about their logos, we think about the color of the logo, and we kind of think about that as branding, and it is. But truly, when it comes to a company brand, it really boils down to culture. It is the culture that you build within your customer, their expectations. It's the culture you build amongst your team. It's the culture of the leaders of a company. And that is really what brand is about. And with Tameshia's change, they're, of course, changing the name. They're changing the logo. They're changing the colors, perhaps. And the survival piece, though, does not rest on that. Their survival piece rests on the fact that they have given their customers a great experience. They have given their team a great experience. And that is what I love about this quote. So when you're thinking about your brand, your company brand, you want to think about the core values that underlie that brand. What does it mean to serve your customer? What does it mean to serve your team members? What does it mean to be a leader within your company? And that is really what brand is about. Thanks so much for listening as we kick off season 7 of the podcast. Take a moment to go and join the Become Your Own Boss community. You can do this very simply by visiting monicaallen.com and joining the community through the pop-up window. When you join the community, you will get the Level Up Living newsletter each month. So don't miss out on that. And lastly, please take a moment to rate, review, subscribe, and share the podcast. Please share it with a fellow entrepreneur or someone who may aspire to be an entrepreneur. I can remember when I still worked in corporate, I knew I wanted to someday own my own business. And in the interim, I read Inc. magazine, I read books about business, I did other things that would make me gain more around that mindset. And so podcasts are a great way to do that. So share the podcast as well. Remember, now is the time. Now is the time to level up, leave a legacy, and become your own boss.